Let's talk about Module 9, migration and innovation in a world where one cloud provider, anyway, I don't even know where I was headed with that movie announcer voice. Let's talk about like some of the tools that AWS has for migration. Kind of some ways of thinking about how to migrate from where you're at over to AWS. They have like 6 possible ways of thinking about it, 4 of which are valid and 2 of which are just you stay where you are. And then, the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework. There's now 6, by the way, pillars of the well-architected framework because, reInvent just happened in November. So yeah, so let's talk about it. So first, let's talk about the CAF, or the Cloud Adoption Framework. This is a set of perspectives that says, I want you to consider these people as you move into cloud. In other words, what's the business perspective? What does operations have to say? What does security have to say? Who's running the delivery platform? What are they doing, right? What about governance? What about people, like skill sets and whatnot? So each of these basically tells you the goal and the common roles and the information that you want to gather to slowly convert over into cloud. This is called the Cloud Adoption Framework. This can help you adopt cloud, or really any technology. Obviously, this is cloud specific. It allows you to think about this from all the different particular areas of concern inside of an organization. So if we go back to the beginning, the business role is going to make sure that IT is aligning with the business. The people role is going to be focused on how to successfully get people the right skills and support the change of the culture for the most part. Governance is going to talk about the skills and the processes to execute this IT and business alignment. Platform is going to talk about how to migrate and what the actual movements are, the workloads are. This includes, by the way, the CTO usually lives here in this perspective. Security obviously is going to be all about the security objectives, includes the CISO. And then operations is going to be about how to, enable, run, use, operate, and recover workloads, based on whatever SLA, SLOs you have with your stakeholders. So which of these frameworks, these perspectives, is about making sure that the AWS platform is aligned with the business goals and perspectives, that you're going to implement the service in a way that aligns with the business? Which of these, right, does that? Yeah, so Gary3, it's definitely a platform perspective, because AWS is a platform. Now, they intentionally avoided using the word platform in the question, but notice that when I said it, I used the word platform because it's about aligning the AWS platform, that cloud, that hyperscale cloud platform, with the business. So, if you want to make sure that your platform aligns, it's going to be a platform perspective. So the rest of those, business perspective would be about, aligning business and IT strategies with the business model, right? Operations perspective would be about making sure that you can operate, maintain, and recover IT workloads. People would be about preparing teams, like skill sets and whatnot, for cloud. Okay, let's talk about migration strategies. Now, this is not Amazon specific, but this is definitely something that they talk about a lot. So first of all, there's a couple of different strategies. There's rehost, replatform, refactor, and rearchitect, and then there's repurchase. Let me just say this, is that rehost, replatform, and refactor are just variations of the same methodology. Let's peel that back a little bit. Rehost was formerly known as lift and shift. That means you take your system, you clone it, and you just stick it in the cloud. You've made no changes. That means that you're going to get into cloud quicker, but you're not going to realize any of the benefits of cloud because you haven't changed anything. Did I say any of the benefits? Wow, that was dark. No, you'll realize some of the operational offloading because you no longer have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning when a disk fails, because Amazon will handle that for you. But you're not really going to make any you're not going to make any changes to the application. You're literally going to copy it and then just move it over. That's it. Yeehaw, you're in the cloud. The other thing though is called replatform, and this is lift, tinker, and shift, which means you change it a little bit. For example, you might make a few cloud optimizations. You might, put auto scaling around it. You might put some monitoring in there, right? Just to realize some cloud benefits. And that's called replatforming. So rehosting is just lift and shift. Replatforming is lift, tinker, and shift. And then you've got the most invasive one, which is like, oh my God, this is a dumpster fire when we put it into cloud. Let's re-architect this whole thing. That's the most invasive, but could potentially realize more benefits because you are now optimizing for a cloud platform. Now, repurchasing is a little weird because it's not really related to the other three. Repurchasing says, you know what? We were using, for example, we were using ActiveMQ licenses on, and we were over here on our traditional data center, and we're not going to do that. Instead, you know what we're going to do? We're going to use SQS because we don't really need ActiveMQ. We don't need an industry standardization. We just use SQS for that. So, it's a little bit like moving from like an in-house customer relationship management system to like Salesforce. So repurchasing is where you actually let go of an old traditional licensing model and you move to SaaS. Now, just to confuse you, Amazon has put in retain and retire, has the other two of the 6 models, because that way, because just to say this, retain and retiring have nothing to do with migration. If you retain something, that means you're going to keep it in the environment that it's already in. And then retiring is exactly what it sounds like. You're like, man, this service actually doesn't make us any money. Let's just kill it with fire. That sounded violent. Let's just shut it down. We don't have to kill anything with fire. We'll just shut it down. That's all. So remember, rehosting is lift and shift. Replatforming is lift, tinker, and shift. Refactor, re-architect is exactly what it sounds like. Let's just re-architect the whole thing. And then repurchasing is you stop using the old traditional license and you go to a SaaS model. Okay, so that being said, could I have teed that up any better? Which migration strategy involves moving from a traditional license to a software as a service model? If you get this wrong, we're all going to have to do 100 push-ups. Really? You all got it right? So we're just not going to work out today? Is that what's going to happen? It doesn't really feel like a workout day. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, repurchasing is it, right? Maybe it's because it's so cold outside. I hope it's warm where you're at, but if most of you are in Virginia, it's definitely not warmer than where I'm at. So repurchasing is definitely the answer. All right. By the way, I once had this slide up on my screen, and my 15-year-old son asked me if this had anything to do with cocaine. It was a sobering moment as a father. I felt like I had to have a long conversation with him. So just to say this has nothing to do with drugs, right? So anyway, so let's talk about the Snow family. By the way, he was obviously joking around, but I was curious as to how he knew the quasi. Anyway, moving on. That's a whole revelation in of itself. All right, so this whole Snow family thing that we're about to talk about has to do with moving data from your on-premise up to AWS. So everything we're about to talk about is about storage migration, with kind of one small notable exception. So I don't know why Amazon decided to stick with the Snow name. Snow Cone is actually not a storage transfer device. It's actually an IoT device. Like, this allows you to put computing at the edge. It only has 8 terabytes of storage, so it's not really great for data transfer. Now compare that with this guy, which has a compute version and a storage version. The storage version can store up to 80 terabytes. It's about 73 terabytes usable. So, and by the way, the storage version is it storage version? No, the compute version, by the way, has 40 processors inside of it. So the compute version of the Snowball device is also kind of an edge device, an IoT device. It has 40 CPUs in it, 80 gigabytes of memory, and basically it will allow you to run C5 sized virtual machines inside of it. Interesting, right? It's like a portable virtualization system. Go figure. Now, the wait, that actually is the storage device. The compute optimized one actually has 52 CPUs in it. Anyway, the bottom line is that these devices are storage optimized or they're compute optimized. The storage ones have 80 terabytes of usable hard drive capacity. So they are mainly used for data transfer. You can get 10 of these together. They hook into your network. You just dump data on them. They're automatically encrypted. They have a great little LED on the front that allows you to manipulate, like get passwords and do stuff like that. And that's the Snowball devices. These were the first devices. These were the first Snowballs, are the ones in purple. Now, in 2016, someone got a wild hair and decided that at the reInvent conference, they were going to drive a truck into the stage and show us that they could actually like put a bunch of hard drives inside of a large truck. This actually goes up to 100 petabytes of data. This truck drives up, has its own cooling and power units, and basically hooks into your data center and allows you to transfer up to 100 petabytes per truck. I know of no one who has used it, but I know people have used it. And by the way, once it comes to your location, hooks in and then leaves, it has a little escort car, which is kind of cool. So it's got a little like aid, if you will, to make sure that, you know, someone can assist you. So, by the way, they refer to this as an exabyte scale data transfer service. Obviously, you would need 10 trucks to get to an exabyte. They also call the Snowball devices petabyte scale transfer services. You would need like 12 or 13 of the Snowball devices to get to a petabyte. So just letting you know how Amazon thinks of things. If they're like, hey, if you need an exabyte scale migration service, they are talking about the Snowmobile, even though one only handles 100 petabytes of data. I'm just letting you know what the questions are going to be on the exam. It's weird. Let's just roll with it. Okay, so that was the Snow family, which includes the Snow Cone, the Snowball devices themselves, and the Snowmobile. Yep, I said that out loud. So next is innovation with AWS. So there's nothing really for you to learn here, but let me just explain this. Amazon believes that there are 3 bets that are going to happen in the near future. One, people are going to get away from infrastructure, which frankly, in the private sector, that is exactly what's happening. You've got a few key operators who are maintaining the infrastructure, but mainly, I mean, let's just say this, like people don't want to be good at running servers anymore. They just want to have their code deployed. If they can do everything in code, by the way, they're doing it as much as possible. And they're like, if the security compliance can support it, they are exporting all of their responsibilities off to third parties who specialize in this. So people are really moving more and more towards managed services, at least in the private sector, not necessarily in the public sector, right? Public sector is pushing that way, especially with some of the stuff I've seen come out of the military here recently. But, you know, control is still a thing that needs to be retained. The other bet is that artificial intelligence and machine learning are just going to keep on growing like crazy. So the ability to take large data sets, get information in real time, and derive value against it, that is 100% where we were headed. The other thing I feel like you could argue is that there's going to be massive disruptions in transportation over the next 10 or 20 years. So you're going to see a lot more drones and flying cars and stuff like that. Now, how sophisticated are they going to be? You know, but I mean, who knew that you actually take your hands off the wheel and have somebody kind of drive, you know, right? But like Mercedes just released a car that was certified by the EU to drive completely unassisted on the Autobahn. Now that's a highway, a little bit more of a controlled engagement, but still, I mean, who would have thought that we would have been there? Give it another 10 years, right? The other thing is that robotic process automation and kind of like just increases in automation in general are going to become a key part of our lives. The other thing that's going to leap to the fore is robotics is going to leap to the fore as well. So anything that supports robotics, including artificial intelligence and machine learning analysis, those are going to jump up. If you're in infrastructure and you're wondering like what might hop up in infrastructure, Amazon's main bet is that people are going to go serverless, but if they're going to stick with serverless, they're going to go for containers. Sorry, if they're not going to go all in on serverless, they're going to go with containers. People are tired of all the attack vectors and all the management, all the licensing that comes with virtual machines. So Amazon, like others, is working out ways to where you can just load up a container, move on, right? So this is their bets, the things that they're focused on. Last but not least is just remember, I said there were 6 now, there's sustainability pillar, but for our purposes today, and if you take the test, there's only 5, is that these are portions of the well-architected framework. The well-architected framework's job is to give you questions or filtering functions that you can use to find out or evaluate your workloads to find out if you're actually doing cloud native like development. In other words, are you doing infrastructure as code? Are you anticipating failure? Are you doing run books and annotating documentation and pieces like that? Are you doing small batch changes, right? This is all operational excellence. Other pieces would be, are you automating your security practices? Is it already included? Are you doing defense in depth? Are you protecting data at transit, data at rest? Are you applying security at all layers? Are you doing zero trust? that last one may not be necessary, but it seems to be something that people are chasing. Other thoughts are, what about the reliability of your infrastructure, right? Can you recover from infrastructure or service interruptions? Can you basically expand and contract capacity as you need to by dynamically acquiring what you need? How are you protecting from misconfigurations and then internet weather, like an outage in an availability zone, for example? And then the next to last one would be, are you experimenting with performance? Are you using newer instances? Are you figuring out ways to kind of make things work? Are you using a serverless architecture? Is there a way for you to go global in minutes? And then last is about adopting a consumption model. How do you analyze and attribute expenditures? How do you use managed services to like get the maximum value for your dollar? Okay, that was a lot. But by the way, you don't need to know the well-architected framework for Cloud Practitioner. But if you decide to go forward into architecture, you're going to at least have to know the names of the well-architected framework and kind of what sits inside of them. Just broad strokes. If you decide to go for the solutions architecture professional, you're going to really need to know it. Yeah. Okay. Which CAF, which cloud adoption framework perspective helps you structure the selection and implementation of permissions? Which one governs permissions? All right. I saw that Gayatri put B. Perfect. That is the security perspective. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's about permissions. So that would, right, speak to us. Good. All right. Which strategies are included in the 6 strategies for application migration? So let's figure out which of these 2 make up the 6 strategies. Gina, are you sure it's not remembering? Are you sure it's not C? Or maybe revisiting? We should revisit things, later on. It's good. Sarcasm aside, B and E is indeed the correct answer, right? Do we retain something and therefore we're just going to keep it? We're not going to do anything with it, or do we lift and shift it, right? Excuse me. Okay. If you get this one wrong, we all have to do 100 push-ups. What is the storage capacity of AWS Snowmobile? That's the truck, right? Then like people are like, well, Michael, we're just not going to answer. Yep, 100 petabytes, right? By the way, what does for no push-ups, by the way, what does Amazon refer to this as in terms of like it is a blank capacity transfer solution? What do they call it? Do they call it gigabyte, terabyte, petabyte, or exabyte? Transfer solution. So, they refer to it as an exabyte solution, even though it can only transfer 100 petabytes at a truck. Okay. What is the storage capacity of the Snowball Edge storage optimized system? I mentioned this several times. This is not the usable capacity, by the way, it's the total capacity. Yeah, it's definitely 80 terabytes. That's the standard. Used to be 50, now it's 80. Good. Which of the well-architected framework pillars includes the ability to recover from infrastructure or service disruptions? Which one has to do with the availability of a system? Excellent. D is indeed the answer. Okay. It is reliability. So we talked about the CAF, the Cloud Adoption Framework, and its 6 perspectives. We then talked about the Snow family, the 6 strategies for migration, innovation, including the bets that Amazon's kind of focusing on, and the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework, now soon to be 6, right? Okay. Any questions about anything in module 9? Okay. Well, we're going to stop module 9's recordings.